Welcome, everyone, to the July iteration of Cross-Pollinations. Thank you so much to those who've joined us this evening, both returning listeners and those new to the series, and also to our wonderful speakers for being here. We're so excited to listen to you read and to speak tonight. Cross-Pollinations is a virtual monthly health humanities series that features poets and health professionals speaking, sharing, and discussing on particular themes. And as Nick mentioned, also up until now, the series was run by the wonderful Mariam Golafshani, who has now transitioned away from her role as coordinator. And myself and Mick Jones have now stepped in as co-coordinators for the series. So just by way of very quick introductions, my name is Rhiannon Ng Chang Hin. I'm a writer and poet from the Gatineau Valley in Quebec. I currently live in Chichoka, Montreal, where I am also a medical student. So I will pass it off to Mick to introduce themselves and to our theme for the evening.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Rhiannon. Thank you, Nick. My name is Mick Jones, and I'm a writer and arts facilitator. And we're so excited to be facilitating this space tonight to discuss alternative health systems. And we were both drawn to the idea of this theme because I think poetry inclines us towards other ways of knowing. And we are thinking of alternative forms of care, not in lieu of, but adjacent to traditional biomedicine. And we think there is a lot of importance around finding ways to integrate alternative care systems, to foster wellness and healing, to turn to when diagnosis and other forms of support can't be accessed through your more conventional realms. And we're interested in all the ways in which people turn to administering care and receiving it. And we think that poetry is a kind of door into always thinking towards other ways of being in our bodies, of healing our bodies. And we're so interested to hear tonight what our amazing poets, Melly and Cat, will be reading and speaking to around this theme.
Yeah, so we're delighted to be joined tonight by Melly and Kat, and we'll be hearing readings and talks on this theme, and we'll also have a Q&A and a question period towards the end. Before we go ahead with the evening, I want to acknowledge that we're all here tuning in from different places across the country, maybe from other parts of the world. I myself am joining tonight from the traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, which has never been ceded by treaty or by any other means. I'm just north of the Tenagadin Zibi, known in French as the Gatineau River, and this region is home to diverse rural and a little further south of me, urban First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples.
And I'm joining tonight from the unceded land now known as Toronto, which in Mohawk means where there are trees standing in the water. And it is the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat peoples, and remains the home of many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. This land is covered under Treaty 13 and the Williams Treaties and protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. And this agreement means only taking what one needs from the land we are on, always leaving resources for others, and doing everything possible to leave no trace. And we are mindful that this is one of the many broken treaties settlers continue to break across Turtle Island, and know it is our responsibility to reconcile this failure with daily action. And now I would like to turn to introducing our speakers for tonight. And it is my absolute honor to introduce Melly Davidson. Melly is one of my favorite poets out there, and I'm so excited for everyone to get to hear her work tonight. They are an educator, a poet, a multidisciplinary artist in Toronto. Their work can be found in Art Poetry, Metatron Press, Pigeon Pages, Silverfish Magazine, and also a zine called Devotional Chaos that you may see circulating around the city of Toronto currently. Her recent work is concerned with the distortion between the silly versus the serious, the profane versus the sacred. And Melly's process is informed by collaging, screen recording, pocket trash, internet relics, and big time collaboration, which I've been so lucky to be witness to. And now I'm going to turn it over to Rhiannon to introduce Kat.
Amazing. It is my privilege to introduce Cat Turcotte, who is a dedicated community worker, cold exposure guide, dancer, poet, and herbalist, whose writing was once a private pursuit. In 2020, she leaned into vulnerability through spoken word poetry, embarking on a journey of continual learning, practice, and storytelling. She has performed on stages hosted by Unity Charity, Right Beside You projects, and Rise Edutainment. Her aim is to share honest reflections that foster connection, particularly for those navigating chronic pain and mental health challenges. She hopes to offer a sense of acknowledgement and encouragement on the nonlinear journey that healing can be. So with that, we'll turn it over to Melly and Kat.
I'm just gonna get into the poems and say more of like, I guess, my personal experience with alternative care systems and even with Cat specifically, till we have like our chat after. But okay. So the first one that I have for y'all today is titled John Travolta, Johnny Cash, and Other Idioms of Kick. And Grease is the word, is my rolled up sleeve waiting to Danny Zuko to prove Kaniki on a bicep freedom. Ribcage lean, metallic, pocket loof, toothpick chewing, what moms warn their daughters about, just to get my kicks while I'm still young enough to get them. But cigarettes don't fit behind my ear, and acting tough as a teenage girl just gets you tripped up into worse things. Mom never warned me, but at the gas pump, from the driver's seat, she did call me a slut. So I waxed up the worst parts into hair gel and acted like I picked out the comb that parted me. And that's still a habit I'm trying to kick. But there is groove and there is meaning. And even though I never had a club with jackets, I had sisters and we fucking rumbled. Shirt sleeve drag around, mom's not home yet, 6 years the youngest, or how to be scrappy on your back. It's all about what you can learn to stomach, but refuse to swallow. You know the score. I'll never win, but I'll get some good kicks in. Among the losing and the looser laces, 7 stitches in my right hand, 4 on my chin, wound packing in my right leg. That's where they keep the gauze inside of you to prevent the skin from sealing shut too early. They leave a couple inches out to dangle like a lasso or a pull string. 3 sets of stitches in my head, the 3rd from when you pushed me off the couch, the first time I bled from somewhere I couldn't see. And sis, I know you didn't mean to, it just meant for more stomaching. But greasers are out and cowboys are in and scars look good on either one. So I pretend Johnny Cash is singing right to me when he says, son, this world is rough. And if a man's gonna make it, he's gotta be tough. And what goes down easy comes up later, like you drank that whole bottle of sparkling apple juice then threw up in the bathtub. So I pretend Johnny is singing right to you when he says, the devil haunts a hungry man. According to cowboy lore, kicking dirt over a fallen opponent was the ultimate sign of respect, was meant to release their soul to the afterlife. I've seen the bucket kicked, but the first time I cheated the memory. Laura said Grammy's face was actually swollen and left side heavy blue, but swear I saw her wood framed and icing sugar dusted. I really wasn't scared because I still got lost in the sound of my own snowsuit swishing and wasn't sure if I was part of the world that happened outside the back seat yet. But I seen my mother wrung out on a floor that wasn't hers, in a car that wasn't hers, after handing her oldest over to white coats, and that scared me more than dying ever did. I finally finished Walk the Line this year. As a kid, I could never get past the scene where Johnny's brother has a sawmill accident, which only happens 8 minutes and 13 seconds in. Something about an older sibling suffering and a younger one kicking themselves up over what they could have done. But if I tip my hat, find a porch with a spittoon, or crack a can of beans, filing your missing persons report seems outlaw chic and danger sweet, like we've always been gunslinging, too low for even the dogs to bite. You just got better at hiding. See, bad news sings better when it's strung off a tin can or vinyl pressed, like Cousin Andre's prison sentence could just be a bluesy bar napkin note. Ain't that just the way she goes, scrawled out in blue ink and left to be found? Or your 7th admittance could just be a date stamped on the back of a postcard. from a place that whip snaps and coyote howls when it enters the scene. But instead, we get three-way calls after watching Bottoms at Young Dundas Cineplex, and I have to DM all your Finsta followers to see if anyone's heard from you. There's a shitty YouTube fan edit of Johnny Cash and June Carter set to better shape up from the Grease original soundtrack. There's a home videotape of you lip syncing I'm Gonna Get You Good by Shania Twain from the CD I would eventually scratch and you would never forgive me for. There is groove. There is meaning. Natalie, I'm sorry your name rhymed with rat, but I'm not sorry we called you Nat the Rat, because that is obviously a sick bandit name. Nat the Rat. How do we salt circle and whistle back? Tie our Zeller's white t-shirts like Daisy Duke. Eat Cheerios off the carpet. A flat tongue promise. It was me. I kicked the hole in the living room wall. But see, that's where I kept the God inside of us to prevent our skin from sealing shut too early. And the kicker is, maybe your sister never gets better. And the kicker is, your cousin's head only gets badder. And the kicker is, the grief is the same in any genre. And the kicker is, there's a world with dew still on it. Rubber to burn, belt loops to thumb. So how about you kick the dirt up over me? End it all with a sing-along. Final exit in a flying car. Ooh, 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 honey. Little sip in between. Okay, this one is a lot more levity. Hashtag brat summer. It's called You're All About Writing Poems, but I'm About Throwing Parties. All this emphasizing hollow. How about jelly stars, craft dinner stirs, gastric gloss, us useless together. Cowboys are frequently fond of the urgency, pissing on speakerphone, post-ironic faith machines, foam inserts of forgiveness, high hopes but hated the view, apocrypha. What a beautiful name for the girl, so misusing, gray matter and outspit, cough up altar, rib apple BPM, sweetened condensed monument of flop, Listerine strip tease, lesser spirit ziplock, channeled and blurred from the lime green. Think you should come to my party and throw up. So vomit has kind of been like a theme in my poetry right now, and I'm figuring out why. But in the same mood, this one is called Celebrity Spew. What in the blister pop YTV sainthood Tropicana SPF gum swallow? I can't believe it's not all Butterball Sun. It's mostly dry heaving and hyperlinks. I'm mostly an anthropomorphic built-in training bra that really hates the word boobies. What in the shame spiral, chronic ear infection, anybody change chick habit? I can't believe I puked in the bathroom at Hurricanes that night, looking sick and sexy-fied. Suburban spaghetti, luck vinegar splash, the bright, bright future you could have, but it was 27 degrees out and tilting silver on a Tuesday. 2 cans thumbing the spirit of risking. All the mornings I fucked up don't remember me, but some of us have to know where it comes from. Ice chip suck, Genesis reflux, junk witness the Spotify rib. I'm going out to Denver. See if I still CD scratch glimmer. Sheryl Crow, Dramamine, Sunny D, I'm all tricked out. What in the cruel to be kind, little green purse, avoidant attachment, anti-acid reference? I can't believe I was wrongfully terminated from the crystal store. I can't believe I then just got another job at another crystal store. Stamp my lower back with Icarus bitch. Grab my arm like a good looking joke. I got Jesus on my necklace, us. What lets a cover outshine the original? Bad form, but bigger kneeling. 11th hour saran wrap. You know that feeling? Just a few minutes after vomiting, I'm gonna bottle that. I stretch open a grilled cheese across the setting horizon. Scatter Jose Cuervo from a bubble jug. Stock license plates for triple number signs so that exhaust God can tell me to shut the fuck up, you pickled side thing. Where the fingernail grows longest, I scab highest. But see, that's how you get grosser and grosser and grosser to the sun. Thank you, thank you. All right, for the last one, any fans of Chris Angel in the building, in the place to be? Chris Angel Mind Freak? If you're not aware, he was like a really popular magician, I guess, in like the early mid 2000s and had like a reality TV show. And me and my sisters were like obsessed with it. And I was at like a house party that had like a talent show impromptu, and somebody did a magic trick set, and it just reminded me like all at once, like, oh my God, mind freak. And so I was doing some light, research on Chris Angel as one does, and I found out that he has a restaurant in Nevada called Kablip, which stands for Chris Angel's Breakfast, Lunch, and Pizza. And so I made a poem in the same style. Chris Angel breakfast. Iced Americano, black, 3 cigarettes, the butterflies in my stomach. It is Sunday morning. I'm levitating. For you at Bickford Park, and I don't know if this is a date, but I do know I can't look at you long, and it's sweet and terrifying thinking of what to say next, to say next, to say next. So the first episode of Chris Angel Mind Freak aired on July 20th, 2005. I was 7. Mariah Carey's We Belong Together was the topper on the Billboard Hot 100. The most impactful films that year were Sky High, Are We There Yet, and Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. That school year, I had a nosebleed that lasted over 2 hours. They had to prop me over the garbage can from the sheer amount of blood. I even started to throw up blood from swallowing so much blood. Luke Fuad told me if I lost enough blood, I could die. And Caleb Braun said he would pray for me at recess. But you didn't watch TV growing up, so maybe this is not a date. Chris Angel lunch. Hummus. Maybe it's Veggie Tales and grade school Christian indoctrination, but something about legumes just feels holy. Like Jesus for sure ate hummus. At this point, I am 60% chickpea water, and with at least 3 near-death experiences, I am feeling closer to God. The featured child's meal on the Kablip menu is Chris's bag of tricks, which comes with a side of magic performed by the wait staff and a soft drink. I don't drink the water you offer despite my dry mouth because I'm embarrassed I didn't buy a bottle when you did. You pretend you don't have to pee for like over 2 hours just to not upset the vibe. This is side magic. We are the wait staff. And you had a dream that Jesus visited you, but you couldn't remember what he said. And I astral projected once, but when the sky opened up, I was too scared to go. We both agreed that we wouldn't take DMT because it's probably better to save it for the real thing, which is so mind freak of us. I heard once that everything's better looking down, which I imagine was a reference to the heavens. But in season 3, in a 2-part episode, with the guest appearance from Dog the Bounty Hunter, Chris Angel levitates 500 feet above the ground over the light beam on top of the Luxor Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. And it was really hard not to see his image overhead when we prayed in gym class chapel. Chris Angel pizza. The Last Supper. What if we missed the rapture and Jesus' second coming was actually Chris Angel, and this is hell burning, and God's son stayed, tempted and washed out on the Vegas Strip, water into whining on the D list for the greater part of the mid-2000s. And I know, Jesus was a Capricorn and Chris is a Sagittarius, but doesn't it make sense? The King of Kings being a Long Island metrosexual goth magician with an endearing lisp and an air of bisexuality. The last episode aired September 10th, 2010. I was 12. Love the Way You Lie by Eminem and Rihanna was the topper on the Billboard Hot 100. The most impactful films that year were Inception, Insidious, and Step Up 3D. I'm finding faith shows its face when it misses me, and magic is real but eventually sells out in franchises. And in the park, you asked me what I think God is. I said something nondescript about what's around and what's above, but really, I thought of that garbage can. My blood, better looking down, over Quaker oatmeal to-go bars, Lunchables, and pizza pops. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melly. That was so amazing. Wow, we're so lucky. Okay, and now to Cat.
Ooh, like I need a moment to transition. That was so good. Oh my goodness. I'm a very big fan. Thank you so much for sharing. And yes, hello, I'm Kat, and I'm really honored to be here, really grateful, and really excited to share with you all. So the first piece I wrote in a Melly's workshop. So Melly has been my teacher, my poetry teacher, one of. And I think she's extraordinary, and that she really brings something very magical out of everyone in the programs. And so, yeah, I want to share some pieces that I wrote in the spaces that she was holding. The first one, that workshop, we talked about portals and liberation and disrupting spaces with love and care. And this poem is about two portals. So for me, when I go into freeze with my mental health, there's two. Like, I thought about the ways I can get out through portals, and one is like dissociative, which is like with food, which sometimes it can be seen as not as good, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. And the other side is cold plunging. It really takes me out of a freeze, and with pain also, yeah, dissociation, or then coming back into your body and your presence. And so I thought, what if I put these two portals into one? Like, what would that look like? So the piece is about a combo portal. I might not be answering your text fast enough, but I can order pizza in less time than it takes to spell my full name. Internal race between child and adult self, and God, I ran fast. Barefoot, even faster. At least I believed in the superpower of it, of what comes from connecting to the earth, little slappy soft paws on the hot concrete, determined that nothing can hurt my tiny physical body, that I can punch the harm away, no worries. Delusional invincibility, I have no clue of its origins. Cravings of inflammatory serotonin giving things, and it's not always serving me, but it's serving. You know what I mean? In the lottery of addictive current hyperfixation, if it wasn't this, it would be something else, no question. But right now, I'm all in, locked in with Turkish pied, unable to find the borderline uncomfortable, filling heaviness in the body, counterbalancing anxiety and other entities. And that's not actually a false reality, but when you're airy trifecta of zodiac signs makes you volatile most of the time, you crave things that pin you down, that tie your thoughts and suspend them away, all mammalian brain, shifting you to a place where internal and external eyes are closed, where you get shocked, primally interrupted. So shock me. Shock me, shock me, shock me into being here, into pausing for 2 minutes, into not wanting anything more than this, into not spiraling. Shock me into falling straight off my mind's ledge. Shock me into companionship with the self, into forgetting the loneliness of pain. Shock me into not needing to be needed. Shock me into color blending and vision unblurring. Shock me into brain freeze, but not the cold type. Shock me into reverse numbing, into being happy away from everything, but filled with the ends of the universe in each and every blood cell. Make the waters in me boil, then throw it on the rocks. Watch me change to smoke. Shock me into the dance that steam does when it blends with oxygen. Shock me into too much breath holds, fuzzy feeling in the toes, fiending on endorphin flows. It's okay if you're cold. When my body burns, you're the only place my bite can go. And so that was the first one. The second piece I'll share is a little snapshot. So I live with chronic pain, and this was a snapshot of something that can seem so kind of like mundane for someone, but a big event for me. So it was going to the grocery store on a day with just feeling a lot. And so here we go. I ended up walking, made dotted lines on the map, hopping in and out of the bus and streetcar. Faster than last week, less steps though. Wiser, more ease, less striving, less on a mission rooted in fear. An assignment made out of knowing what's good for me. At first, all I could think about was picking up the mangoes I couldn't find on Monday. But then I saw the dragon fruits and I got eager. Fruit bowls equals abundance. And I was instructed to focus on the abundance of abundance. And so I picked up the passion fruits and the pineapple. But then, oh yeah, I ran out of eggs. And next to the eggs was the kimchi. And so I remembered I've been wanting to make kimchi fried rice. And so I walked around with a heavy basket of fruits around the store, a bit too much. And it took me way too long to find the red pepper paste because you would think it would be refrigerated, but it's not. And then it goes with sesame oil, and we pick a glass bottle over plastic any day. And so here goes more weight. I finally made it to the cashier line and realized that I don't actually have rice at home. And the feeling I get thinking about all the work it took to gather these ingredients and not being able to make the dish once I get home could start some sort of tiny earthquake in the world of internal tantrums, and I can't afford to order pizza again, emotionally. And so I put the basket down at this point because I went way overboard on the weightlifting and thought it's just gonna take me a second to find a bag of rice. And after walking through all the aisles with a silly, confused smile, I walked past my basket to walk around some more, to almost give up out of embarrassment, to finally see rice bags next to the cashier. I hate waiting for the bus, but these days I wait for it, even when I don't have heavy bags to carry around. I learned how much pounds of pressure is applied to my back depending on my posture. Even healthy food can hurt you, you know? Too much of a good thing can be a bad thing, and I can never avoid carrying too much. Even if it all started with wanting to eat a comfort-giving, current obsession, mango, it always starts with liking something too much. And then even gravity becomes too heavy for me. Thank you. Also, this is my first time, doing a reading like this. So I'm like, I'm really grateful and feeling silly on the inside, but really grateful to share a bit of my story with you. The next one, I did want to take a risk and share something that is not finished yet. And I thought, the beauty with poetry is this process, and with healing, it's a process, and it's not always perfect, but the sentiment meant a lot for me. And this is like a temporary title, but the essence of it is a quote by Rumi, which is, "You're not a drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in a drop." And I want to tell a little bit more after about the poem. Did you really think that transformation was going to be pain-free? You might have been sold a lie, out of care, out of love even, but yet here you are, amidst it all, chaos and wind chimes. Everything with a form was once a mess, mush and bones, tears and handwritten letters, hugs and a new way to breathe from the belly now. Here you are, sometimes alone, kaleidoscope forming, pain in the bones, in the nerves, in the tissues, in between everything that holds, pain in the parts that are supposed to be left unfelt. Misalignment creating friction, creates heat, excess fluid that bubbles, creates rawness, strips the layers, strips the coating, keeps everything exposed to air, to oxidation, to be seen, to be loved, to be promised to be loved, to be lied to be left burning. Heart rubbed the wrong way, left upside down, spilled out, a waste. Don't let yourself forget the day you were stacked up the right way, poked in the tenderness, everything too bright not to cry, and how tears are sprouted by a tickle in the ribs that rises up to the parts of you that you show in order to see around yourself, see where you're going. Part 2. Painkillers don't work on longing, on the stings that comes with limitations, wanting to be over there, feet in the air, twirling around, face in the sun, belly button in the wind, surrounded, strong, loved. Painkillers don't work on time lost and being sore from the bed. They don't make your tears less wet. Part 3. Life in the way we know it is beyond reach. Shouted justice is amplified. The tension is felt. Solace is needed more than ever. But I am left on the floor, fire in the legs, speaking a language that seems to be alien to those who only want to take from my fire, but tell me that they have fuel, coal, sparks for days, navigating conversations about the bare minimum, conversations about the price of life, based on things that shouldn't impact value, worth, considerations. Some things are not for debate. Yet too much of those things are being swirled around the square tables and the places made of glass. And those of us with rocks in our pockets are, but can't, get tired. Despair has a very heavy cost. And when you let yourself be neglected and that the discrepancy consumes your mind, you are no good for anyone. When you let yourself being walked over and that you spend time studying the footprints left in your nervous system, instead of being out and about, two-stepping, you make a waste of yourself. You make a waste of the brilliance in your mind, in your heart, and in your spirit. And so this piece I wanted to share because a lot of what I write is actually processing from my therapy sessions. It's like the processing of the processing, and a lot of it I continue to work on through poetry. And this one is because my therapist, which I have been seeing for maybe five, 6 years now, like weekly or bi-weekly, called me out, and she was telling me that I was making a waste of myself in the most loving way possible because I wasn't focusing on my healing enough. And that because we both know that like I know that my purpose in this lifetime is to be of service, and I'm very dedicated to collective healing and liberation, and that when I don't take care of myself, then I cannot contribute to the collective. And so in the last 8 months, I was like really struggling, and the world also has been really chaotic, and I was really having a hard time navigating not being able to walk yet, which means not being able to go to protests, for example. So that was that's something that I was like working through. Okay. And it's not in a guilt way, because like you can't guilt yourself to heal for the betterment of others, but it's just to never forget that the work you do on yourself always allow also the collective to get better. Okay, I got 2 teeny tiny ones. This one, it speaks for itself. Wrong way. You are lightheaded in the morning, or is it at night? Wrong way. Catching feelings. Wrong way. Sometimes you wake up and you love your friends so much your heart aches. Wrong way. Every time they want to link, you're sick. Wrong way. Every time they're trying to go out, you're hurting. Wrong way. Every time you're hurting, you don't tell them. Wrong way. You don't dance anymore. Wrong way. You want to do it all, but truly you don't want nothing at all. Wrong way. You don't feel anything, and that's more scary than feeling everything. Wrong way. You think about leaving. Wrong way. And then lastly, it's also from a piece from a program with Melly. We were tasked to write recommendations, and it was a really lovely session. And the recommendations were, Melly, I don't want to like share too much, but tell me if I'm wrong, but it was based on an app that she's currently like navigating, and again, thinking about collective care, right? Recommending things for each other. It's such a thing that we do. And so It was really inspiring to hear, and the recommendations can be like very like material, very like direct, but it could also be very poetic. And so I just want to end with my recommendation. Whenever you feel like you are somewhere in a position you would consider identifiable as rotting, ask, how would you live this moment if you loved yourself? What would you do in this moment if your life was a love letter? And start moving towards the picture that slowly develops in your brain. I bet you there's a bit of water, a bit of herbs infusing that you can smell from the next room, or a plant watered, a bit of order, a soft book cover, wind gently blowing between your fingers, maybe a bit of movement and declutter, probably colors. You're probably showered. The curtains are probably open. Or are they closed and the fairy lights are on? Or are they open and the fairy lights are on? I can assure you, you wouldn't be on your phone. You're not hurting as much. And oh God, you don't care about them. If you loved yourself right now, I'm sure the gravity ratio of what rubs just misses, and what holds you would change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kat. That was so amazing, Kat and Melly. I feel so lucky to get to listen to each of you for a solid period and hear your work. Even though it's through a computer screen right now, I really felt like I was in more than just a Zoom room with you both. Wow, I'm like, it's all soaking in for me still. And while that's happening, I'm just hoping that you both could maybe speak to and tell us a little bit about each of your relationship between poetry and healing/wellness, whether that be in your work or around your writing practice itself. I think both of you were speaking to some of that in the pieces you read, and would love to hear more.
I can go in first, and Kat, you can jump on since you just read. I'll give your voice a little break. Yeah, I think like all poets, you know, you kind of start in your bedroom out of a deep needing and like yearning for making sense of something large and sticky and like not in a, you know, usual form. But I think like yeah, I think in really direct ways, like poetry has allowed me to be able to like process and like put something like outside of myself, and like it makes sense, it being like non-linear and like it being based in like, I don't know, sensory and like not in like a fixed definition of anything. I think like poetry being in my life and also like, you know, ailments being in my life, or like really close like loved ones and friends and community members who also have like issues and our struggles against like more traditional forms of care. Like poetry has always kind of been a space where like it validates immediately, I guess, and like time doesn't have to work against you, and it can work for you. I think about like poetry right now in my life, and like things that I approach poetry as like forms, as like collaging or like fermenting or like that what's that Japanese thing where like things break and they glue back together in like gold, and then like, you know what I mean, to show that like that's actually where like the magic is and the good is. So I feel like the poetry continues to be this like reflection of like right now I'm into humor and like giggles and like silly and funny being like such a deep medicine for me right now, and I think one that the world could really you know, benefit from. And yeah, poetry lives as like these like little vials that I can like be tincturing and drinking and like sharing with my friends and like potioning all together, like regardless of yeah, like real resource or like, you know, yeah, real time.
Yeah, I love that idea. And like the breaking and putting back together as a new thing. There's an old phrase that like I found on a coin one day that was called like that said or read to be bent, not broken. And I love that idea of just like bending material and making it new. And I think both alternative forms of care and poetry are ideal avenues to pursue that in an embodied sense. Yeah. that really sits with me, Melly, that starting with the deep kneading. Would love to hear your thoughts on that too, Kat.
Yes, totally. Yeah, I mentioned earlier how I find myself working on so I do somatic experiencing therapy, and like it has saved me. It's not for everybody, but for me, it really helps me with my mental health and my managing my pain. And a lot of the processing I find happens when I sit with the page and I write. And I guess like going back on the other things that have been in my life, like I figured out a pattern where whenever I find medicine for myself, I feel a really deep responsibility to share it with other people. And so I started like strongly with dance, and then same thing happened with herbalism and with cold exposure. And with poetry, what is kind of arriving, really landing right now, is that it has helped me process my healing a lot. And for example, like I got off some antidepressants that I was on for 6 years, and I was documenting the withdrawal symptoms because they were really extreme, and realized that I was writing poetry when I was documenting it. And so it took me a lot of courage, and it was really hard to write and really hard to share. But I ended up writing a piece about my withdrawal symptoms. And I think that was like the first seed that was planted for me, that my journey with pain, I can share about it, even though it's kind of like, dark and muddy. But for me, I feel very validated when I hear other people's journey with pain and mental health. And so I realized that maybe that's something that I can do as well, is just to share the things that feel really scary to share, because I can't be the only one like going through this. And so maybe it's kind of like sparked just like a few lights where it's like, oh, there's a few of us and let's talk and maybe we can write together. Yeah.
Totally. And that practice of like what we were speaking to of community and finding ways that healing is in reality community based.
Thank you so much. Just first of all, for your readings. You both are so captivating in your reading voices and also your words. And it's so great to hear you speak about your practices. So I have a question for Kat. Can you share a little more about your experiences as a cold plunge exposure guide and what drew you to this particular care modality?
Yeah, totally. Well, I'll start with the end of your question. So I was drawn to cold exposure because I heard about it from like Wim Hof and like the health components of it. And I was curious, but I was really not interested in the cold because I'm already having chronic pain. And so I'm already in discomfort. But I have a friend who has a company, and they organize little trips, and the community side of it is what made me really curious about it, because like a group of people going in the cold together in the middle of winter in wild water, it just seemed like so intense but fun to do together. So I tried it. I was curious about the health benefits, and my first dip really didn't go well. Like I went into panic attack because my body really knows what panicking is like. And so I went into panic, and it was a big process, but I ended up realizing that, well, I did a lot of work that day, came back at night, and I was able to do the plunge and regulate my nervous system. And basically that's the nutshell, is like I panicked, I worked on myself, and I figured it out. I went back, and then I was able to regulate my nervous system. And going in the cold is really an opportunity to flex the muscles of down regulating your nervous system. So really good for people who have panic attack or anxiety, which I have. And so that's what drew me in at first. And my therapist would call me out. Sometimes she'd be like, when was the last time you dipped? Because I can like, it would be good for you right now. Like, and so at first it started like that. And then I got off my medication. And when I did a big process for 50 days before I plunged every day, because the medication that I was on is also a norepinephrine, so it's SNRI. And when you go in water, it floods your brain with norepinephrine. And so I was thinking, I'm removing the pill, perhaps I'm going to get the norepinephrine through the water, through the cold. And so I did it for 50 days. And then I took my last pill, and then I did it for 50 days after that. And that really just really awakened so many things in me. And I was like, okay, I need to share this with people. And when I did my transition between the 50 posts and 50 pre and 50 posts, like I did a little celebration with friends, and Melly came, and I wanted to share with my friends like what it feels like, and it's a tool that is accessible. And so, and from there, I was like, okay, I need to get certified. Like, I want to guide other people. It's a tool. You don't need a lot of money. Like, you can do a cold shower, you can do a cold bath at home, you can go to the shore. You know, it's accessible as long as you have the right education and the right support, because there are risks involved. So, like, I don't recommend doing it alone. And, you know, there's all of that. But yeah, and then since then, doing it has been an incredible, humbling experience. I have so much respect and reverence for the water, for the cold, but also for anyone who trusts me with their first dip or even with their later dips. Yeah, I take that responsibility really with like it's a big role. Yeah.
And I so admire that having a really strong experience of healing and connecting to your body, and then wanting to be able to facilitate that for others. I think that's such a wonderful way to respond to that experience. And so as you were just speaking and talking about like the cold and the ways that it related to your anxiety, we have another question to get to, but at first I just wanted to say, like, was there any like ways that like that sort of intense sensory experience like unlocked anything in your writing of poetry, which also, as I was listening to you, has so much like sensory like activation as a listener for me?
Yeah. Well, I'm a very sensory person in general. Like everything, I'm a hypersensitive person. Everything is a bit intense. And so the cold was very intense. I did write about that night dip, and the moon was there, and like I was with friends and we beatboxed in the water, and I did write a poem about it. It's not in a place where I'm ready to share it. But I think the shock me part of that poem is really because when you get into a cold, you get shocked. You get like your mammalian dive reflex, and you lose your breath, and like those things are very, very real. And I think I think about the cold a lot and the way it makes my lungs feel, and I write about my lungs a lot in other poems. So maybe in that way, there's like a little connection. Yeah. I don't know if that answers a
Oh,
bit
totally.
ambiguous.
Yeah, no, I love that thought. Maybe I'll pass off to Riad and say, yeah, I think that I'm going to be thinking about the cold dips I've taken, not technical ones, but experiences in cold water. And yeah, it's just such an embodied experience. And so is poetry for me. So I love thinking about those two in tandem.
Yeah, I also love the idea of the people in the community being like little lights that you find, and they're sort of, yeah, these lights in this healing community that are on, and you can move towards them. And you were mentioning it's a similar sort of sensation, the writing in the poetry community. So I really like those parallels. I can move on to the next question, which is a question for Melly. And we are wondering if you can speak about how the form of poetry, in contrast to more narrative forms of writing, might inform and reflect your experiences engaging with alternative health systems.
For sure. Such a cool question. I could go more off what I kind of touched about before, like the ways that poetry can be approached, the ways that like you're able to reveal meaning to yourself, like unbeknownst to your like innate wisdom, and not like up in this brain when you're writing. Like kind of like shows through, and like the ways that poetry offers, yeah, just like such yeah, the nonlinearity, and like the, you know, like the ability to like make up your own kind of like environments of like real to reflect like what is happening and what is feeling. But like just from our conversation right now, like I'm thinking of more so just like form of poetry that of like what the community has brought to me, and like what like that has been as like a a place of alternative care is actually just like friendships and like relationships and like the spaces that like you can share like with people, like when you're both trying just to have like language about like what's hurting, or trying to have language about like how we can help each other. And like I feel so like stupid grateful for how poetry has brought some of the most like important like folks just into my sphere, and like Cat totally being one of them, where we've like had such an interesting braid of experience between like sure art forms, but also just like both of us being in positions of like we would have like work meetings and I would just be like bawling my eyes out, I mean like I don't know, I'm having like an emotional release right now, or like yeah, Cat, I'm sure you can jump in and speak to it too, but like our like yeah, like the intimate relationships in my life actually being like really a huge like radical form of care, and poetry like facilitating that is like what is immediately coming to mind, yeah, within that question.
I think that's a perfect lead in to what we were hoping to speak next to, which was reflections on one another's, both each other's art, your poetry, and also your experiences within alternative care spheres. And I know that some of that has been quite literal in the sense of Cat like supporting Melly in different ways. So any reflections from either of you, I think the whole room would love to hear.
I can go, and with the ways Melly supported me. So that day when we're a group of friends, we went to this space where we did contrast therapy and celebrating my coming off my meds, and which also I think like meds like save me and save people, and they're important, and sometimes you're just ready to move forward without them because you've built the skills and you're like, okay, I can do this. So did the celebration, and Millie attended, and she gave me a crystal, and like and they mentioned she worked with crystals before, and that really touched me. And oh my god, I'm not gonna cry. The encouragement was really meaningful for me. The cool thing is that this winter, every weekend that I went up north for my training, which is very intense, and also I had like 100 dips to lead after at my training, I brought the crystal with me like every time up north to give me support. The last winter was one of my most painful winters, and doing something I really like while something very challenging, like holding on to the encouragement and the power. And that I think that that's one of Melly's medicine that she shared with me, was one. And in other ways, so when I went to the hospital last year, Melly came with me, and she made my experience in the Western like hospital system alternative by the way she facilitated and offered my support. And I thought like we have so much power for each other with our communities to make the experience that can be challenging different. So Melly brought like the coolest snacks, and we were reading poetry out loud to each other in the waiting room, and just like laughing and talking about everything and nothing, and made really the experience that was so stressful and terrifying smooth and fun, and like one of the funnest days I can remember like my whole life. So yeah, just that's my part.
Oh, I'm gonna like cry. Yeah, wow. Yeah, I think like just it's been incredible the ways like yeah, how nuanced like an alternative care system can become and can exist as like yeah, bringing snacks for somebody when you have to go to the hospital and nobody wants to, or like I like some of like I think like the most important like and hardest first steps to for me like searching out for like a more intensive like care for myself was like through Cat, and like I've learned so much about like embodiment and like listening to your body and like trusting like intuition and like allowing yourself to be evidence for your own care like through Cat. um yeah and like the thing that Cat talks about where like they have this like in like this like innate desire to like share what's like helped like them is like it's so true. And I've been so lucky to be in circles around Cat where like I've experienced that. Like I've done cold plunge therapy and I've like felt that kind of feeling like through Cat. Like I've like worked with herbs and like have like unlocked a whole different type of like medicinal practice through like things soaking in water like through Cat. And like yeah, just yeah, I continue to like learn so much from the ways that like our lives like braid together. And it's always like yeah, poetics, healing, laughing, learning, like it's never just one.
It's so beautiful. And I think something I'm feeling really excited about is that when Rhiannon and I were bringing our ideation period around this theme, I think we were, looking at the different modalities, and cold plunge therapy and herbal medicine being some of those. And then there was a much longer list, but then just in the context or the time of this conversation, I feel like my definition is continuing to expand and thinking about community in that, and connecting to the earth, whether that be through crystals and all those forms being, and also more guerrilla systems of within other maybe more standardized care, how we can be continuing imagine ways to to make it more expansive. I think is a really exciting takeaway I'm having, at least for myself. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just add on to that. I just love the idea of, just like how poetry continues to reinvent language in this generative way, we can also continue to reinvent the types of ways in which we understand our systems of health and care and community, in the same way that we do that with language. So a lot of what you've just spoken about really resonates.
And I think that like continuing to grow that language, whether it be through poetry or through alternative care, as you cited earlier, Cat, is how we make real change in community in that way.
I just want to take the opportunity to thank you for creating this opportunity, because this is part of the care, the community care, alternative care that we can have for each other. And also, like, for Melly and I, this feels like a major celebration of our past. And we were talking and we were saying how it feels like our relationship was just was the perfect buildup for, it's like if the relationship was the buildup for this talk specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're really, really honored and infinitely grateful for the opportunity. Thank you.
So yeah, I think that brings us to the end of our event. Thank you so much again, Melly and Kat, for your amazing readings. I'm so glad this is recorded so that we can go back and re-listen, because there are lots of things I've been trying to write down. So thank you again, and thank you to everyone who came to listen. Our next event is going to be on August 28th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, on the theme of trans health. And so we look forward to that event happening in a month's time. And until then, thank you again so much. And we hope you have a beautiful month of August.